So today we're going to be showing you how to fix the lifters on a Dodge Durango 4.7 liter. We're going to be fixing the right side. So here's what it sounds like. You can hear the clicking. That's the lifters. We're going to be replacing them. So the first thing that you want to do is remove the negative battery terminal. So now that you have the air duct off, you want to remove the air filter. And remove that bolt off, and this whole assembly will pull off. So now that you have the air stuff out, you want to start removing the wiring harness for the injectors and the spark plugs. So just remove these and remember where they go because you don't want to mix them up. Now that you have the injectors and the spark plugs unplugged, you want to push the harness down so that you have room to get the valve out. So to have room to take out the valve cover, we have to remove these two coolant hoses. So we'll drain the coolant and remove those hoses. So now that you have the coolant drained, you want to move these hoses out of the way so it'll be easier to move this out. And to get this top hose off, you're going to have to remove the air duct. So before you take off the valve cover, you want to take off the oil fill, and it will move out of the way so that you don't damage anything. This is out of the way, you want to start unbolting the valve cover by these bolts. There's 4 on. So to take off the 2 back bolts, you have to remove that this hose and then remove that plastic piece, and then that will get you access to that bolt. So it can be tricky to take off the valve cover, so you might have to wiggle it. So to remove it, you might have to wiggle around with the AC line. Just be careful not to damage it. So with your new lifters, you want to soak them in engine oil for 12 hours. So now that you're going to be replacing the lifters, you're going to make sure that the piston that you're working with is at bottom dead center. So you're going to take a welding rod or something, and just so that you can feel the piston through the spark plug hole. And you're also going to get someone to turn the crankshaft to get it at bottom dead center. So when you're installing the new rocker and taking it out, you want to make sure that the cam lobe is not pressing down on the rocker, otherwise you won't be able to get it in. So this is a special tool that you will need to compress the valves to be able to remove the rockers and then the lifters. So this part will go on the camshaft, this will push down the valve. So with the tool on the valve, we want to be able to twist the injectors so that they won't damage if the tool slips off. So this is how the tool goes on. This part goes around the cam lobe, and then this part pushes down on the valve. I don't know if you can see that. And then you put a ratchet on there to twist it. Now that you have the valve depressed, you can remove the rocker, and then the lifter will just pull right out. And there's your lifter. So you can see that this old lifter that we just took out has too much play. The new ones in here should have no play, and that's what we want. Now that we have the new lifters, we're going to be installing them. It's pretty simple, just the opposite way that you took them out. So you put the lifter in first, get the rocker ready to put in, compress the spring, and the rocker will just slide in. Before we put on the valve cover, we want to put in a new gasket and then just wiggle it back in. When you torque up your valve cover, you want to torque them up to 105 inch-pounds and tighten them in a crisscross sequence from the center. So you're just going to go center, bottom, and then just crisscross across until you're all done. At this point, you can put in your spark plugs back in. Now that you have all the spark plugs in, you can put the spark plug coils on. Now that you have the spark plugs all done, we can put in this plastic piece. Next thing that you want to do after installing spark plugs is connect the wiring harness to all the injectors in the spark plug. Now that you have the valve cover in, you can put the engine oil fill on. Now what you want to do is put the coolant hoses back that you took off. So now that the coolant hoses are all hooked up, next thing that you want to do is hook up this tubing. It goes to that plastic piece that you took off on each side. So now that you have everything back on, you can start putting this air box back on top. You can now install the air box with the air filter just by this one bolt again. You can now install the air tubing from the air filter to the manifold and just hook it up. So the last thing that you want to do is hook up the battery. Always take off negative.